Welcome to another segment of Interviews That Matter. I'm your host Raj Mehta. Friends, in this segment, we bring those guests who influence our lives. This includes elected officials, policymakers, heads of major organizations, and other dignitaries. It is my sincere hope that the knowledge brought in by our guests will help our community. Today, we have such guest who is the first woman district attorney in the Nassau County, Kathleen Rice. Let's meet District Attorney Kathleen Rice. Welcome, ma'am. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Appreciate your taking time.
Thank you for having me.
First, I wanted to, ask you that in 2005 you really did great, meaning that you beat 31-year incumbent Dennis Dillon, who was supposed to be like a pillar, unshakable or unmovable, and then you just came out of and beat him in 2005, and you were the first woman attorney general, district attorney in Nassau County. What was it like that in 2006, first day you walk it?
Well, it was very, very interesting, to be sure. I was incredibly fortunate to be given the opportunity to run. I was running after 13 years as both a state and federal prosecutor. And Nassau County is where I grew up with my 9 brothers and sisters. So the ability for me to come back and run for DA in a place in my home county where my parents still lived and a lot of my siblings and a lot of friends lived was an incredible honor. So on day one, there was a lot to do. You can imagine what it's like to take over for an office that was under the same management for 31 years. So I wanted to do things very differently. I wanted to modernize the office. So we started by doing things like modernization in the office, doing more, updating the computer systems and things like that to make it easier and more efficient for us, for the prosecutors every day who have a lot of paperwork to do and going into court and presenting evidence in court. So that was one aspect of what we had to do. And then what I had to do was address issues of inequality in the office. For instance, there was a 30% pay differential between men and women with the same level of experience. So it took me a while, but we were able to do away with that pay disparity. And a lot of that was based on the fact that there wasn't a lot of room for upward mobility for women in the office. There had never been a woman DA, as you know. There had never been a woman executive in the office. So that's all changed now, and now it's a pure merit-based office. And then there were the different policies that I wanted to implement that I talked about during the campaign in 2005, specifically addressing the epidemic of DWI, addressing the issue of public corruption, addressing the issue of protecting the most vulnerable in our communities, the elderly and children. And we were able to do that. It took a while to change people's perspective when it comes to things like DWI. But we've been able to, through very aggressive prosecution and me going up to Albany and fighting for better, stronger laws, we've been able to really begin to address that epidemic, and little by little we're shifting the tide. And the big result from that is that fewer people are dying on our roads. And I think in large part that's due to the fact that I talk about DWI a lot, and we are very aggressive in prosecuting it. So we had a lot to do starting on January 1st of 2006, and I was fortunate that when I started to run for re-election in 2009, I was able to go around to different community groups and talk about all of the promises that I made and the promises that I kept, and I was very grateful to be re-elected again in 2009.
Yep, congratulations.
Thank you.
And so who was your mentor?
Well, my original mentor was my mother. My mother was a saint. She was an only child who got married to my father, had 10 children. She instilled in all of her sons, she had 4 boys and 6 girls, and she instilled in all of her children the belief that we could be anything that we wanted to be, number one, with hard work, and number 2, that whatever we do, we have to do something to give back to the community. And so I've spent my entire life in public service. So I looked at my mother, who was a trailblazer back in her day. She went to college and had a career before she got married as in PR in the city. And so she was my mentor, but I've also been blessed in the legal community, having a number of mentors who have helped train me both at the state and federal level, really, really good attorneys that I was able to learn from. And I try to do that myself with the prosecutors in my office, the young young men and women who are just out of law school and learning how to try cases. I go into court and I see what they're doing and I talk to them about strategy. I think having a mentor is so incredibly important. It's important for a young man or a young woman, even as far back as when they're in grade school, to be able to look at someone and say, wow, I can be that, I can do that. And so I try to act as that mentor for kids, young kids, but also young adults.
So who tapped you in 2005, right? You know, I mean.
So in 2005, I was a federal prosecutor in Philadelphia. Now, interestingly enough, after my first year of law school, I did an internship in the DA's office in Nassau County for Dennis Dillon. And so I met some attorneys in the office, some young prosecutors then with whom I kept in touch. And one of them, who was involved in the Democratic Party, called and said, we're looking to see if you would be interested in running against Dennis Dillon. And I thought immediately this was something I wanted to do. I knew it was going to be hard, but I've always felt that whatever is worth having is worth fighting for and working hard for. And I gave my notice, and 2 weeks later I moved back home and started campaigning and spent the next 6 months 20-hour days going around and meeting people and explaining to them why I felt that I could really bring law enforcement in Nassau County into the 21st century and protect us on a very community-based, all across the communities all across our county.
Wow, that's great. I mean, you know, you just took a big challenge and you came through.
Well, you know, and I really think that whenever I go and I speak to kids in high school or grammar school, I always say to them, don't ever let anyone tell you what you can and cannot do in life. I'm not talking about parents teaching kids the difference between right and wrong. Discipline is important. But don't let anyone tell you what you can and cannot be in life. That you have to feel the fear and do it anyway, and just charge ahead and work hard, and whatever you want to be, you can be with hard work.
That's a good message, really. You know, that's absolutely true. Like, you know, people like me, immigrant coming from different place, and
you're a
still
great
achieving,
example. You
achieving
are a great,
whatever,
absolutely.
Because, you know, hey, listen, there is nothing there that can stop you.
No, absolutely. I mean, you are a perfect example of that. Look at what you've built here. And no one handed that to you on a silver platter. You made it happen. And it's so important for kids. You know, times are tough these days. You know, it's hard to get into colleges, and then once you get out, is there a job for you when you get out? But it's important for kids to remember that they have to dream big. You had big dreams, I had big dreams, and you can make them happen if you work hard.
Yep, I totally agree with you. So, in your office, like, what are the major functions of your office, like district attorney? I know that, you know, prosecutor, and you prosecute people, you know, who are not doing right things.
The most obvious part of my job is just that whenever anyone breaks the law in Nassau County, criminal law, my prosecutors in the office, we take that case into court and we try it, or we, you know, enter into plea bargains. We dispose of all of the over 30,000 arrests that there are in the county each year. That's what every DA's office does. What makes my office different is all of the proactive educational things that we do in the community that really, in my opinion, separates my office from a lot of other offices. I don't think it's enough just to be tough on crime when it happens. I think my job as DA is to actually try to prevent crime from happening. How do you do that? What you do is you have to be in the communities, you have to see what's going on, you have to get into the schools and do educational programs like I've started called Choices and Consequences about DWI. We go into the high school to teach kids about the dangers of drinking and driving, and a program called Stop Then Send, which in this internet world is so incredibly important, because what it does is teaches kids about the dangers of how great it is to have computers and cell phones, but also the dangerous things that go along with that. And we teach the school administrators and parents that as well. We also have a program called Not My Child, which we go into the high schools and we teach kids and their parents and the teachers about the dangers of prescription drug abuse and heroin. We have a heroin problem here on Long Island. And prescription drug abuse is the #1 public health crisis in this country. It's not just here in Nassau County, it's across the country. So a lot of what I do is get into communities and try to help people not penetrate the criminal justice system. And once they do, to try to get them back on the right track. I think that for every time that you can take someone who has made a mistake they've paid their dues, and you can help them reintegrate back into the community. That's one less victim that you're going to have in the future. And I think from a moral perspective, that's what we owe each other. I think that we are each other's keepers. And while I prosecute the worst of the worst and they go to prison, like the home invaders and the murderers, and that's the way it should be, for a lot of nonviolent offenses, what I try to do is redirect people so that they don't come back into the criminal justice system, because I think that's when you see a real decline in crime.
See, that is why they call you passionate and innovative district attorney in the country.
I try to be. I think
because you not only prosecute, but also you do different, like put up different plans. So same thing, like you educate to prevent it.
Well, I don't think I was elected to maintain the status quo. I think that people saw in me a young, fresh approach, someone with 13 years of experience on the state and federal level, and coming back to my home that I love with all my heart. I love Nassau County and I want it to be the best. And I think that now the 1.3 million people in Nassau County have one of the best DA's offices in the country.
Wow, congratulations again.
Thank you.
Yep, and I think you got a nationwide attention on DWI, that you are the most toughest DWI prosecutor in the country.
Yeah, it was important to me. I have been given that name, and I am known very much for that. And the reason is very simple. I have made it, I said it was going to be a priority, and I have kept my word and made it a priority since the day I was sworn in as DA. And the reason why it's so important is because it is an epidemic. Drinking and driving is an epidemic. And before, when people drank and drove, they would just get a slap on the wrist. Now what we have is people being held accountable. We're initiating more ignition interlocks to keep the worst of the worst drunk drivers off the road, and we're seeing results. And anytime I get calls from prosecutors' offices across the country, how did you do this? How did you do that? And I share this information because I want people to learn from what we're doing, the successes that we have, and DWI is one area where we've been successful. We've still got a long way to go, but we're getting there little by little.
So you got better results, obviously, after...
Yes, there's no question. And one of the numbers, one of the indicators is how many deaths do you have on your road that are attributable to drunk drivers every year, and we've cut that number down. Unfortunately, we still have too many people dying and getting physically injured at the hands of drunk drivers, but we've been able to go to Albany and fight for tougher laws and tougher sentences, and the making ignition interlock mandatory for all first-time DWI offenders. That's incredibly important, because what it does is it makes it impossible for the person convicted who has to have the ignition interlock in their car from starting their car without first blowing into the ignition interlock, and which will ensure that they have no alcohol in their system. So technology is there to help us in law enforcement keep the bad drunk drivers off the road. We just have to use it more, and we have to get judges to ensure that they impose that punishment.
So you basically, like once you prosecute somebody or once you have an idea, innovative idea, you have to still pitch into the legislators, correct?
Yes. When it's a law that we want to get passed, what we do is we try to get advocacy groups around that issue to go up to Albany with us. We get people in the community to call their legislators and say, please support this bill. And then I go up to Albany and I knock on doors and I get legislators from both the Senate and the Assembly to sign on and help carry the bill through to hopefully where it gets signed by the governor. And we've been successful. This year, for instance, we're going to be pushing for the passage of our Consolidated Animal Rights Bill, which is incredibly important. I started an animal crimes unit to address the issue of animal abuse in the county. There was no SPCA to address these issues. So we started a hotline, we set up a hotline. Anonymous calls started coming in. We've had over 1,200 calls in the past 2 years alone. We've increased, we've quadrupled our animal crimes prosecutions here in the county. We made the first dog fighting cases, and we have rewrote the law to take animal crimes out of the agriculture and markets law and put it into the penal law where it belongs. So that's a big, one of my big legislative initiatives for this year. We have two members of the Assembly, Chuck Levine, who's a hometown legislator here. I'm sure he's been here. And Linda Rosenthal, who is an Assemblywoman from Manhattan. And then we have Chuck Fischillo, they're carrying it in the Assembly, and Chuck Fischillo is carrying it in the Senate. And I feel so confident that we're going to get this done. And it's going to be groundbreaking for us here in New York State because animals are the truly defenseless. They need to be protected, and that's what this bill will do. But it's also important for people to understand that very often when you see an instance of animal abuse in a home, that you will also see instances of child abuse, domestic violence, gang activity.
Right,
so it really is a
right.
way for us to, exactly, it's exactly what it is.
Right, yeah. Well, we'll take a short break and we'll be right back. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the Interviews That Matter. We are having a conversation with Nassau County District Attorney Kathleen Rice. Welcome back, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, so basically, I mean, this year you helped pass, but I mean, I'm sure that in the prior years you have done a lot different programs in your office. You started that, right?
Yes.
So can you tell us something about what was your most accomplished program?
One of the most innovative things that we did was in the village of Hempstead, where you had one of the most notorious open-air drug markets on Long Island. And it was a 6-block radius in the village of Hempstead. Now remember, the village of Hempstead used to be the economic engine that drove all of Long Island.
Right.
If you had a business, it was located in the village of Hempstead. And what happened in this 6-block area is that criminals took over. And the people who were living in that community were held hostage by these criminals. And prior to our initiative, law enforcement had the same response every year. They would go, they'd arrest all the people, they would take them to court. Some would go to prison, some would go to jail, others would just be released and they'd go right back to doing what they were doing. So what we did was put together an initiative where we went into the community and we asked them to join us on this initiative where we are going to identify all the drug dealers in this particular area. Most of them are going to be arrested and prosecuted, but there were 13 who were nonviolent and were selling drugs to feed a habit or to put food on the table, as so often is the case. So we partnered with the community, we partnered with the Hempstead Police Department, we got all of the elected officials on board. We had a big meeting at the African American Museum in the village of Hempstead where everyone from the community told these 13 drug dealers, don't get arrested again, and you can stay in this community, but if you're going to sell drugs, you're going to be arrested and you're going to be prosecuted. And we have had an incredibly successful result. As a result of that approach that was really led by the community, standing up and saying, we don't want this kind of crime in our neighborhood anymore, and we are going to push this agenda. We have only had 4 people fall out of that program, out of the 13. Now those statistics are far better. That's called rehabilitation, okay?
Right.
And what the program has morphed into is really a re-entry program and a no-entry program from 2 perspectives. So what we did was we set up a resource center in the village of Hempstead in a building that we rent from an organization here in Nassau County. And we have a resource coordinator there. So people can walk in off the street and say, I need to find a drug treatment program. I need to figure out how I can get my GED. I need to get after school care for my child so I can get a second job or a first job. Now, these are all things that the county has set up agencies, social service agencies, to help people with, but it was very difficult for people to kind of work their way through the labyrinthian maze that was the social service system. So we have everyone at one location, and they're getting the services that they need. We have a program called Council of Thought and Action, which meets twice a week at night, Tuesday and Thursday nights, where people can sit in a group and talk about the issues that they're facing, whether they are people who are just coming out of jail or prison, or those who are trying to prevent falling into the criminal justice system. It has been incredibly successful. One of the major problems in Nassau County, and it's across the state really and across the country, is how do you cut down the rate of recidivism? How do you stop people from, once they commit a crime once, from continuing on that cycle?
Right.
70% of the crime here in the state is committed by people who have committed crimes before. So we have to come up with a comprehensive approach to how we prevent people from falling into that black hole of recidivism where they just go in and out of the criminal justice system, so that when they return and they come back to their community, that there are support systems there whether it's through their family, their friends, getting them a job, getting them their GED, helping them, not carrying them through life, but helping them reintegrate so that they can get family supporting jobs, because if they can do that, they're not going to go out and commit crime again. So this has been an incredibly successful program that was actually since adopted by the Department of Justice and actually the Department of Criminal Justice Services in New York State, and used in different jurisdictions that suffer from these same issues. So that's the kind of work that I try to do. I think that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting a different result. So in the village of Hempstead, that was a completely different approach that had never been tried before, and it was a success. And other people have learned from that, and we've continued it. And I think that's the kind of stuff, those are the kind of initiatives that the people in this county deserve from their DA, and that's what I'm going to continue to do.
Very nice, very proud of you. That's
Thank
really
you.
nice.
Thank you.
I mean, the thinking is good because, one is that thinking is good and then implementing is another thing. So you implemented, you've been able to implement, putting together all these different people, that's great. That's
well,
really
all the services are there. I mean, we have to remember is no one grows up and says, I want to be a criminal my whole life.
Exactly.
So what we have to do is get those who are at risk and give them the services that they need as young as possible to keep them from penetrating the criminal justice system.
Yeah, basically people are not criminals, it's the action.
Right.
What they do is criminal. And then once you kind of control that action, they're fine.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah.
So viewers of our show is all South Asian American, and I'm sure you're coming across many of us, and I wanted to know your thoughts about us, our community basically.
Well, your community is incredibly strong, is incredibly cohesive. You are laying down roots here that are helping communities all across our county. I have a wonderful relationship with your community, and I'm so grateful for you giving me this opportunity to come on here and speak to your community. What's so interesting, what makes Nassau County so interesting is it really is a microcosm of the rest of this state. We are a very culturally diverse county. We want people to come live here, whatever their cultural background, and because I think that makes us richer and more powerful and more inclusive. And one of the reasons I was so excited to come on this show is because I want people from every cultural background to know that I am their district attorney. And I look for people to tell me, what are your issues? Tell me how I can help you. I don't come from your cultural background, but tell me how I can help you in the position that I'm in. And so I try to go out and speak to as many groups as possible, but and tell them what I'm doing and make a connection with them so that if there is ever an issue that may be specific to your background, that you can, tell me about it so I can address it specifically.
So, many of young people in our community are kind of, becoming an attorney or in the process of becoming an attorney. So I'm sure that, in your office you may have some opportunities for them for being an intern and all that.
Well, thank you so much for saying that, because we have one of the greatest internship programs, I think, anywhere. And we take high school kids, we take college kids, and we take kids who are in law school, young people, I shouldn't say kids, young people, high school, college, and law school, and they come for 8 weeks. We have an 8-week program, and then we have a 4-week program. And they are assigned to specific prosecutors in the office, and they learn what it's like to be a prosecutor. They learn what it's like to be a lawyer, how to interview witnesses, how to present your evidence in court, how to, everything. I mean, it's clerical stuff. It's how to put a file together. It's incredibly intense. And the feedback that I have gotten is so incredibly positive. We get so many requests, I never turn them away. We had the biggest internship class we ever had just this past summer. So I hope I can send the message that please come. If you're interested, if you're in law school and you think you want to work in my office, come and do an internship. If you're in high school or college and you think you want to go to law school, or you might want to go into some kind of criminal justice area, come and do an internship. The more the merrier. I welcome people. The other thing that's incredibly important is that my office reflect the makeup of our community. So I'm always looking to make our office as diverse as possible, because I think it's really important for people, regardless of where what their cultural background is, that if they have to deal with someone in the DA's office, that they know that they are being represented.
Right.
And so the office is more diverse than it has ever been, but we are always looking for new applicants and people who want to start their life in public service. I think it's an incredibly honorable profession. Obviously, I've been in it my 20-year career. So I think very highly of public service, and I think the experience people get in my office will make them feel the same way, that public service is a very honorable profession.
So is this like a summer program, or is like
So
all year round?
Well, we do internships during the year as well.
Okay.
Some college kids, college young people, and law students will do externships. So they'll come for the fall semester or the spring semester, and they will work in the office and get credit for it.
Oh, okay.
So it's not none of the internships are paid positions, because
Okay.
we don't have the budget to pay.
Right.
But it's a great thing to put on your resume that you did this internship, if there's any way that you can. And the externships are during the year as well. And then we're always looking to hire a new class of prosecutors, recent graduates from law school. Our class starts right after Labor Day in September. So if anyone is out there who's graduating from law school next year and would like to apply, go to the website at nassauda.org, and there is a link right there for employment, for a job as a prosecutor, and you just go through the process there. And I hope a lot of your viewers will come in for either internships or for a job.
But this is a great opportunity for our community, and if anyone is really interested, they should contact DA's office, or you can contact me also, and I'll be happy to help anyone who needs help. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. That's a good program, by the way.
Oh,
because young people do need guidance, and they do need experience. They do need to put something on the resume, and that definitely helps a lot.
Yeah, I think also giving them the opportunity to see what it's like will help them focus on what it is that they want to do. The most important thing, in my opinion, is that people, when they embark on a career, that they do something that they can be passionate about.
Right.
Because work is work, okay?
Right.
Work is work.
Right.
But if you can wake up every day, like I have been blessed to wake up every day and say, I can't wait to go to work. I love what I do that much. That's a great day. Then work isn't really work. So I hope that another message I would give out is that find your passion. And one way that you find your passion is to do internships in areas that you think you might be interested in. When I did my internship when I was in my early 20s at the DA's office, I knew that's what I wanted to do. And here I am, 25 years later, the DA of this great county. So I'm a big believer in following your passion.
I really hear you from the heart, that you speak from the heart.
Well, I love what I do.
Passionate about it, so
I am.
I mean, I can hear it, it's really nice.
I'm very lucky. I really am. I'm so fortunate to be in this position, to be in a position where I can make a difference in people's lives. And I just want to teach people about all the lessons that I was taught. And one of them really, well, two things. Find your passion and work hard. That's it.
Hard work without nothing.
Absolutely. Nothing happens without a little bit of luck thrown in, but hard work is the key.
Yes. See, that's same thing as me. When I come into the office, I feel great.
Yes.
And I want to come.
Every day, right?
Every day.
You look forward to going to work. Exactly.
So now let me turn into different subject, and I know probably what your answer will be, but I'm still going to ask you anyway, that your name has come up many times, that next year is a county executive election, obviously, and your name is always coming up as a possible candidate on the Democratic ticket. So tell us.
You want me to give my big announcement here? Well, I understand why people are talking about me in that way, because I am a Democrat, the only county-wide elected Democrat. It's very flattering. I love Nassau County. I want Nassau County to be as successful and wonderful and strong as I know it can be. And there's some time to decide what I'm going to do, but I can tell you that I love the job that I have. I feel incredibly fortunate to have it, and we'll see what time brings.
See, this is what exactly I was expecting from you.
I'm glad I could give you exactly what you wanted.
But I'm pretty sure that the time comes and then you will decide. And one thing I want to tell you, that we don't want you to just stay here. We want you to go out also from the Nassau County, because that's where we really benefit also. The county benefits if you go out as statewide, obviously.
No, that's true.
Obviously, we really want people like you to represent us in the state also.
Well, thank you. I definitely, what has kept me in public service is my belief that I have something to contribute. And I will stay in public service as long as I feel that there is, in some way, I can contribute, whether it's on a local level or a larger scale.
I mean, it is said that, when you ran primary last
Yes.
time, if it would not have been three-way, you would have won.
Well,
That's
yeah.
the way it is said already that, because of three-way, probably, you were not successful at that.
It was a crowded race, and it ended up coming down to just two people, the Attorney General, Eric Schneiderman, and myself. I was very proud of the race that we ran. And look, the reason why I ran for that position is because it was exactly what I do on a local level, and I felt that I could contribute on a larger scale. But you know what? You can't win them all, and I was very fortunate to be able to come back to this job that I absolutely love, and we'll see what the future holds. You never know.
Well, you have a bright future anyway.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
And we love you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yep. So now we are running out of time, so I would like you to give the final message to the viewers of our show.
Well, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to watch this show. I'm very grateful to Raj for having me here. I am so fortunate to be the district attorney in this great county of ours, as culturally diverse as it is. And I hope that some of what you've heard here today makes you feel better about this great county of ours and tells you about some of the opportunities that I have in my office. I want to continue to have one of the most diverse offices in the country, and I believe that we do. And I'm hoping that through my message here today, we're talking about internships and externships and positions as lawyers in my office, that I get a flood of resumes from everyone. And also remember that you can always call the office if there's any issue that you ever want to discuss. My office is always open, my door is always open, and I look forward to hearing from all of you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, you can email me at rajmitv@gmail.com. Again, that's rajmitv@gmail.com. And you also can watch our prior aired interview on YouTube on our channel, youtube.com/Infosys International. Again, thank you, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.